So could there be peace in our time in Ukraine? Remember, the last person who talked about peace in our time was in Munich. How did that turn out? Donald Trump is trying to do a deal with Vladimir Putin. Where does that leave Ukraine, Europe and the UK? The US Secretary of Defense, Peter Hegseth, is slightly rowing back the comments he made yesterday, saying this morning the US wasn't selling out Ukraine.
No country has made a larger commitment to the Ukrainian mission than the United States of America after the aggression of Russia. There is no betrayal there. And the United States is invested and interested in peace.
The former Defence Secretary, Ben Wallace, told us he feared Ukraine was being sidelined.
The lack of support for Zelensky in his press conference yesterday, President Trump, where he wouldn't even say if he viewed them as equals, Trump and Zelensky, and indeed didn't really feel that Zelensky was going to be a major player in these negotiations. And then there was a statement by the US Defense Secretary just before NATO and at NATO that is a really big change for us all in the West, certainly in Europe, that America has said it will no longer be able to be the primary guarantor of security of Europe.
Hannah, I guess the question is, because we are not necessarily going to determine in the next few minutes the rights and wrongs of geopolitical decisions, but we can testify to how we feel about them. We're very invested in what's happened in Ukraine as Europeans, as British people who've supported the Ukrainians with money and welcoming Ukrainian refugees and the like. What's your reaction? How are we supposed to react to the idea that Donald Trump just picks up the phone to Vladimir Putin and basically says, you're going to have to do a deal, and what Ukraine were fighting for probably doesn't matter entirely?
I'm really glad you're talking about emotion, Stig, because we often exclude that from our news reaction. But actually, this is an extremely bitter pill for Ukraine, and it's an extremely bitter pill for Europe. I mean, we can't say he didn't warn us. We've had Gaza Largo already, and now we're getting this. And as far as a lot of us will read it, it's big bullies back, it's empires strike back, it's this bromance with these tough guy poses. They're discussing history, they're talking about winning the Second World War, they're playing superpowers. But at what cost? He said he'd prevent World War III, but the cost is clearly going to be Ukraine. And not only are they saying, Europe, sort out your own problems, they want their money back. They want their $180 billion back. I mean, I think Peter Hegseth is disingenuous this morning. I agree with Ben Wallace. This is, I mean, the first word that came to my mind last night was capitulation.
And, Americans, there is a historical precedent for what America does. With great legitimacy in the past where they give money to people in Europe, like Ukraine, but they want the money back. That's what happened after the Second World War and after the First World War. America became richer and richer because it both lent money to the defeated and very weak European powers and then asked them to buy American goods in return. And I just wonder whether that is the American MO. The most important thing to America is America. Maybe we shouldn't be surprised about that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you're right. I guess we got used to a situation in which we felt that America was interested in Europe, was interested in the world, in a non-financially interested way. That there was a philanthropic, humanitarian impetus, and particularly, Biden said that, and Biden and Kamala Harris were very verbal about that. But yeah, maybe this is reality hitting back. But it is upsetting, as you asked about the emotion. I think a lot of us today who it's 3 years, it's 1,086 days.
That's right.
And I think we'll wonder what the hell we're doing. I mean, there's a Tory MP who's gone over there, isn't there?
Yes.
Jack Lepresti, and I was thinking about him this morning. He called it a battle for Europe and talked about giving the green light to dictators otherwise. And I suppose as I was brushing my teeth this morning, I was thinking about him, and I was thinking, yeah, well, he's made that decision, and I guess a lot of us are sort of thinking about that this morning. We've marched, we've campaigned, we've sent money. And now Trump is saying, yeah, it's your problem to solve.
I guess the flip side, Martin, which some people are saying this morning is, well, there's got to all wars end in a deal. America is now just saying what was actually always going to be the case, that this war had to end in a deal. Ukraine was never going to win outright. Ukraine was always going to have to cede some territory to Russia. The question is America withdrawing from the field of Europe, how much is that a body blow? And do we have to say, can we replace America with ourselves? Is, I suppose, the challenge that Ben Wallace put down when he was on the programme earlier.
Probably not. But if you look at this, and you look at Putin's objectives when he went into Ukraine, it looks like he's going to get every single one of them. The big threat to Russia was that Ukraine were becoming an increasing source of energy for the West, and Russian energy was going to become less and less relevant. Well, they've won that one because they've got the energy source now. That's number one. He wanted to close the corridor along that plain between the West and the East. Well, this will dramatically do that. And the third thing he would have wanted is a friendly, whether it's a puppet government, but certainly a government that was much more friendly towards Ukraine. And I would imagine he would get that, because I cannot see how any negotiated peace, so to speak, doesn't end with the end of Zelensky. I mean, you've got Trump talking about his poll numbers as if it's a game show. And the fourth thing is no Ukraine membership of NATO. Yeah. They've already said that he's got that. They've already ruled that out. You've got Trump saying that Ukrainians may be Russians one day. I mean, we can't pretend this is anything else than a complete Russian victory. And you can stop, when you talk about stopping the bloodshed, you can stop any war if one team surrenders.
And I guess I just wonder whether that's such an important point, Martin, because I'm struck by doing this show for the last 5 years. We always have these people come on, they're always optimistic. Something goes on in Belarus and they go, don't worry, the people of Belarus will be able to rise up and that'll be the end of the problem. They don't. Myanmar, a junta takes over. Don't worry, the people will be able to rise up and there'll be no problem there. You see it in almost any time there's a crisis. We want to tell ourselves, and politicians tell us, don't worry, the sort of good guy, liberal democracy answer will win out. And I just wonder whether it ever does anymore, actually.
Increasingly it doesn't. I mean, the point about these super powerful men getting together and carving the world up as they want it is well made. And in this case, we sort of know. I can remember being in here a couple of months ago, and I think it was you said to me, "Stick, would boots on the ground?" It was all the boots on the ground, and you go, "Would you do it?" And I said, "No," but because simply you knew what was going to happen, which was that after Trump got into power, Ukraine were going to be sold out.
And can we put boots on the ground? That's the other question. You've been talking to Ben Wallace, but also we had it in the Times today. We probably don't have the army to put boots on the ground. So if we can't do it and America won't do it, the question is who defends Europe becomes a very pressing question.
And the answer to that has been, over the last couple of months, Germany has held back, really hesitant about that idea of some kind of European force on that border, because precisely, what happens if shots are fired? Are we then drawn into some kind of hot war? Germany doesn't want to be in that space at all. There have been suggestions that they've been seeking US support, whether that's air power or guarantees that US would intervene. If the US is now absenting itself completely from that field, we don't have the numbers of people to be able to provide that guarantee. Europe potentially does, but may not have the appetite for it. Where else can Ukraine look to? And if it isn't about being able to provide that support, and it does come down to leadership in Ukraine, where does that leave us and the rest of Europe?
And there's no straightforward answer to that. Hannah, I guess just finally, on this point, do you feel, I don't want to say that we're being lied to, because as Kate's pointed out to me, there's just diplomacy at stake, but it's very striking to me that when you have people who are politicians, we had the Ukrainians saying they were cautiously optimistic, we've had both the Tories and Labour more or less saying the same thing, Donald Trump's all right in the end and he's getting a deal done, and a deal is the right thing provided that Ukraine has a say. We were told that this war was winnable for 3 years. We were told that this was going to end in Ukrainian victory. It doesn't feel like we've been told the truth, or at least the truth has been unacknowledged by many people for a long period.
Yeah, going back to Kate's point, I think the only country that's been rearming is Poland, and we know why that will be. We know why they are rearming in this situation, and just kind of geographic reality. Yeah, it does feel like that. I feel like a, liberal sap this morning, that I've been raising money, I've been, sending aid, I've been reading about it, I've been talking to a lot of Ukrainians. There are a lot of Ukrainian refugees staying in our area. We've put flags out, and I feel like an idiot. I feel like a well-meaning idiot. And you can hear the emotion in my voice. I do feel very emotional. And, it's funny, in the first Trump term, we would go to bed and wake up and he'd have been, I think the Guardian established that he was tweeting from the lavatory, and he'd always be saying, we'd wake up to these crazy things. And now we seem to wake up to the planet being carved up in ways that superpowers want again. And it feels like my childhood. It feels like the 80s, It's a retro I wasn't looking for.
And I think, the Ukrainian message today is that they are hoping that not all hope is lost. They are going into this optimistic. They're not calling out Donald Trump at the moment. They're trying to fight for everything they possibly can.